Cool. Ready? And now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 2, season 2, Choked Out Radio, revived, renewed. A lot to talk about. Buy the shirt. We'll let you know the link where it's at soon. We have Vibes here
in the building.
And
Miguel Sosa, a.k.a. Majin Bay, a.k.a. White Henny Baby.
Welcome to episode 2. And today we're going to talk about the Montreal Screwjob, Survivor Series 1997, sponsored by Karate Fighters.
Yes,
I remember. I remember that was just like off the dome. I didn't even Google that.
It was either Karate Fighters or JVC Kaboom Box.
Yes, remember that?
Yeah.
So the stage is set. We all know Bret Hart is leaving to WCW, right? So let me take a step back. So Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, they didn't love you. They didn't like each other, right?
They hated each other.
Right? So almost a year now.
I'm looking for my pen. Sorry.
So all right. So obviously they fought at WrestleMania 12, and then now when you leave a company in wrestling, you always you lose, right? You always lose. But this is an interesting scenario because Bret was the champion, right? And even before that, Bret said, hey, I met with Eric, right, with Bischoff, right? This is what they offered me. Can you match? Obviously, Vince couldn't match because their contracts were structured differently, right? Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that? So leading into that day, what are your thoughts of Survivor Series 97? I remember watching it, probably in my hacked VCR that we discussed.
We watched it at your house. Yeah. I remember that
yeah.
for sure. We were at your house,
yeah,
and there was just like an uneasy feeling that day.
Right.
Because all the stuff that was going on, like, that hotline 800 number I used to call, there was like, there's something. Vince and Brett have been in meetings all day, and it's just like
something's up,
something's going on.
Right.
And then, you get to the pay-per-view, and you watch the match, and it was a really good match from the start. Like, as soon as they came out, I think the first few minutes it was like a brawl outside, and
the
then
bell didn't ring technically till 10 minutes into the match.
And then. You're like, what? We're like, why is Vince McMahon there? Like, that's weird.
Right. Something was weird.
Something was gonna happen. Because Vince never came to the ring.
Right. This is at the time where he stopped announcing, or no, not as much, right? He stopped announcing.
He was, he was still announcing,
but never came to the ring, right?
No, yeah.
Well, he was, he got involved position. Somehow, right. Yeah, with the storyline,
right?
I remember. He was being more vocal now, like he was coming.
This is the beginning of the Mr. McMahon character.
Mr. McMahon character,
This was the infancy of it,
right? Exactly.
But it's pretty much like when you see him sitting in the announce table and them shouting at him and whatever. Like,
yeah, because leading up to this,
you kind of knew something.
Him and Brett would always argue. Like there was that cage match on Raw, and Brett oh, this is bullshit. And he pushed him down.
Yeah, even with Shawn. Even with Shawn.
And then.
Altercations.
Vince was at the announce table, and then they got into like a hockey fight.
Yeah.
And it was just like, this is what the hell is going on. Right. A lot of people don't talk about that. Like, they mostly talk about Austin McMahon.
Right.
But like, Brett was the first one to put his hands on Vince.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't speak about that. So, I remember just thinking back, like, it was, you knew something was gonna happen, but nobody knew what exactly was going to happen that day.
Right.
It was just an uneasy feeling watching it.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, man?
The build-up was what a main event is supposed to feel like.
Yeah.
It was great build-up. You just like two guys that literally hated each other.
Right.
But it was just weird because, and this is again like this. There's a huge debate going on, like, is it a work or a shoot?
Right.
Because
to this day,
you know what I mean. And we will never know. We weren't there,
right.
But if you remember, like, in the beginning of the pay-per-view, like sometime, like in I guess within an hour of the pay-per-view, you see Michael Cole backstage, asking Vince and Sergeant Slaughter, who was the commissioner at the time, like interviewing them. Right? So it's like, okay, why is he interviewing them? And he's asking Vince, like, his last question to Vince was, who you think is going to win? Right? And Vince was like, oh, I don't know. Why would you ask that question?
Right.
Like, if this is supposed to be a work, right? I mean, if this is supposed to be a shoot, why are they mentioning these things on TV?
Right.
And it's kind of like you're giving the audience a glimpse of what could possibly happen later on in the night. Like you're automatically introducing Vince into this story, you know, or into this match. Like it's kind of like I feel like they just gave it away.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I thought it was a shoot, you know, but just seeing that like kind of threw me off guard.
Yeah.
You know, because why are they going to interview Vince and Sergeant Slaughter before the match and ask them that question, like who you think is going to win?
Right.
You know?
Right. So I watched Wrestling with Shadows years ago. This is from off the dome, from what I remember, right? So supposedly the whole argument was Brett wanted to win the match, right? Right. He didn't. Right. This was in the time where they hated each other.
It was in Canada.
It was in Canada. He wanted to win. He promised Dika. He promised he was not going to take the belt because Vince is what his fear was. He's going to take the belt
and go to WCW.
And go to CW Nitro with it, right? So that was number one fear.
He thought he was going to do what Alundra Blaze did,
right?
With the women's title,
right? So the finish was discussed for days and days, and Brett and this is vocal. He's vocal about it for days, and he did. You know, he was on the edge. He didn't know what was going to happen. Is he going to get screwed? Yeah. Thank you, because I'm all adamant Italian and So I guess he thought. Well, tell me. Well, I won't even. I'll leave balls in your court, Ralphie, and then vibes, and then you. So what do you thought? So I believe from what I understand was the original finish. Well, in Brett's mind was he was going to walk away as champ.
So yeah, the original finish was supposed to be like Bulldog and Owen were supposed to come down, and Davey and Anvil and I think Triple H. It was just supposed to be like a no contest, and that's what they were going back and forth. Even on the Wrestling with Shadows, like you could hear the audio because Brett was mic'd up.
Yep.
And that's kind of like what they decided on, but you know, years later, they did that confidential.
Yeah.
And you know, Pat Patterson, Briscoe, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, everybody they all met, and they were like, well, if he doesn't want to do business, then we do business for him. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why Triple H and Vince are the way they are, because it was Triple H's idea.
Wow.
If he doesn't want to do business, we're going to do business for him. He's like, just screw him.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The hell with him. Like, he's leaving us.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, then we'll screw him over. And that's when they planned the whole Screwjob finish.
Mm-hmm.
So on one hand, you know, they had their agenda. On the other hand, Brett was like, in his mind, he's like, oh, you know, all right, this is how we're going to finish this. And then you watch the match and you're just like staring at the screen and like silent, like what the hell just happened?
Right.
You know, him going ballistic and spitting in Vince McMahon's face. Like,
right.
In 1997, we were
in our teens.
In our teens,
we were
it's
old
like,
enough,
old
and young enough.
Whoa, what just happened?
Yeah, and something you've never seen before. You know, they went off script on national TV in a pay-per-view, huge pay-per-view, huge main event match.
Yeah.
But I just remember watching that, and I'm thinking to myself, like I was analyzing it. Like I was analyzing the last, I would say like 2 minutes of it, and just to set up, you know, Earl Hebner gets hit, so he's selling it, and you know they were working on Brett. Sean was working on Brett's knee during the match,
right?
And he had him on a figure four. He reversed. Brett had Sean in a figure four. Sean reversed it, and then all of a sudden, you know, was working on his knee, and then he puts him in the sharpshooter. Earl Hebner gets up, sees it, right away rings the bell. He like just waved his hand like he was disgusted at what he just did.
Right.
Because you see Vince telling him, ring the bell from the outside. Mm-hmm. Earl Hebner rings the bell, runs outside, ran out of the ring. Sean is just laying there looking at Vince. Look, if you notice, Brett is still holding onto his foot, so Sean cannot like get out of the ring right away. So he's just holding onto his foot. Sean like wiggled his way out, rolled outside. Triple H is with him.
He takes the belt.
It's like it's his bodyguard. Like he's his bodyguard. Because if you notice, fans started like throwing stuff in the ring, throwing stuff at Sean, pushing him,
throwing drinks at him.
I honestly thought there was gonna be a riot.
Yeah.
You know, and they escorted him out. Sean made it seem very believable that he wasn't a part of it by his facial reactions. And he's looking at Vince like, oh, what the hell, whatever. But if you like right before he goes in through the curtain,
he
jumps up.
Yeah, he was like celebrating. Yeah. He was celebrating the win. I remember that.
He celebrated it. So it was like he was like, oh, but right before he looked at the fans and he just jumps up and he's showing the title and and it's like he ran outside, he ran to the back, whatever. And then you just see Bret Hart in the ring, like in shock, and wasn't that right before they went off air? And you won't see this on the network. He did the whole WCW.
In the documentary, they have it, but not in the actual show.
Yeah, on the network,
he started
they don't have it.
Destroying
the set
and everything.
Yeah, right. What are your thoughts, man? Bret Hart has been in the company since the early 80s, right? At least 10, 15 years up to that point.
I think he's
maybe even 20 years.
Mania 2 he wrestled?
Yeah, maybe until 20 plus years, right?
He was there for a long time.
Not 20. I'm lying. That's like 06. So maybe 10, 11 years. Right? 11 years, let's say. What are your thoughts on Bret Hart? What his perspective? What are your thoughts of a guy put in your heart and soul, right?
I think they did him dirty.
Yeah.
I'm a Bret Hart fan, and grew up watching him. He always did the right thing for the company. He always, he said it. He's like, and he never injured anyone. He worked all the time, whether he was sick or injured. He came in, he did everything they asked of him, and towards the end of his WWE run, was he bitter because he wasn't accepting of changing with the times? Probably, but that happens all the time. He was willing to stay. He signed a 20-year deal to stay for less money than what WCW was offering him.
Yeah. What's the story behind that? How did he get out of that? Was it like a handshake? Or was it
Vince canceled the contract.
Oh, he canceled. Okay.
He called him and told him that he couldn't afford him anymore, and then told him that he should renegotiate with WCW.
Okay.
Wow.
So I think he got 3 years and like $3 million per year, WCW.
Yeah.
And I think Vince offered him like $3 million over 20 years or something like that, and he took it.
Oh shit!
It's a no-brainer. I would have right.
He took it because he wanted to stay, but he ended up going to WCW. He signed the contract. He faxed everything over, and then and that was it. But then it was like, he would have lost the title, if I remember correctly, from Wrestling with Shadows. He even said, I'll lose the title to Brooklyn Brawler. He just didn't want to lose to Shawn Michaels.
Yeah. Right.
And not in Montreal. Like, he said, I'll lose the title the night before.
Right.
Yeah.
To anyone. But then it's like, everybody's buying the pay-per-view to see this match. So it's like, what are you going to do?
Of course. And I think, wasn't it that he was willing to lose it on Raw?
Yeah.
He was willing, yeah.
The night after.
The night after.
But
Yeah.
but Vince and I guess his team were adamant. They were like, they didn't want to take that risk, right, at walking out of Montreal as champ to just dump it in the garbage like Alundra Blaze did a couple of years prior.
Which I don't blame him.
I don't blame them, but it shows you how much they had trust in him. Because if you trusted him, they wouldn't have thought that.
So had business been different and they weren't on the losing end of the ratings at that point, I don't think it would have mattered.
Yeah.
I think he would have been, all right, come out tomorrow, lose a belt.
Mm-hmm.
But because they were already losing in the ratings and they were on the verge of filing for bankruptcy, in Vince's mind, if this guy shows up tomorrow night on Nitro with my championship,
forget
that's it.
It's a wrap.
Our company's over.
Yeah.
We're done. Because they were legit on the verge of filing bankruptcy.
Right.
They
Wow.
had
I
talks.
didn't know
Yeah. Bruce Pritchard said that they had already had talks and were already planning, and they started making plans to cut salaries on certain people behind the scenes.
Right. Wow.
Because he said it felt like when they went to the steroid trial.
Right.
And they were just hemorrhaging money, and they needed that spark. So Bret Hart kind of saved WWF,
right,
because this kind of sparked the
Attitude Era.
The Attitude Era,
And sparked the Vince McMahon character.
the McMahon character, and then the whole Austin and
had him win the Rumble in '98.
Yeah. Things happen in wrestling for a reason, man.
Yeah.
It's like a domino effect.
Yeah. And I mentioned this before. It's a domino effect, and you got to build from what you see, from what happens, from what you get. You know what I mean? You got to build from that. You know what I mean? And then it just takes its own course. It just whatever. And it sucks what happened to Brett, but I think WWE benefited from it big time.
Yeah.
They became a global phenomenon because of a screw job.
Yeah.
Right.
It was just insane. It was just top news.
Like they were already big, but like this catapulted them. Like Bret Hart is responsible for Steve Austin being the character that he is.
Right.
Yeah.
Even if you date back to WrestleMania that year, right, with the whole double turn, right?
Yeah.
That was one of the greatest matches ever.
And
amazing.
That screw job created the McMahon character because he came out and he cut a promo, the Brett screwed Brett promo.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that attitude of Vince carried over into his feud with Austin, which made them millions of dollars. Yeah. So Bret Hart is directly responsible for the rebirth of WWF and the Attitude Era.
Yeah.
Right.
Whether he agrees with it or not, because he didn't agree with all that stuff, like the DX, the crotch chops, all that shit stuff that they were doing. And he wasn't.
I mean, he wasn't with it because he's very old school,
right?
But the thing is too, like Bret Hart, if you think about it, between him and Shawn, they gave them the ball after Hogan left, after Macho Man, after all these guys that they were relying on for so many years. They gave the ball to these two men, and they carried it. I mean, granted, the ratings were low. It wasn't great at the time, but they put on amazing matches, and they did the best they could. I think they were, Shawn had to eventually retire for a number of years. Yeah. I felt like Bret Hart was kind of burnt out too.
Right.
I think he was kind of burnt out.
And it's crazy how he got injured a couple of months later, Royal Rumble 98.
Yeah.
After that match, that casket match with Taker, right?
Yeah.
Put him out for 4 years.
Wow.
It's crazy. Think about that.
And it kind of makes you wonder, like, was it kind of karma?
Right.
Was it karma?
Could be.
You know what I mean?
Could
you never know.
Right.
But it's just unfortunate. But it was. I mean, I remember seeing it all over.
Right.
All over the internet. AOL or whatever.
Right.
Like it was like top news.
It was
pretty
everywhere.
much. Yeah, it was all over. It made the headlines.
Yeah.
What was cool was the Wrestling with Shadows documentary.
Yeah,
took you behind the scenes.
Yeah, which I wanted to get into. So he punches him, right?
Yeah,
he punches him in the eye or in the face.
What a black eye.
Bang a black eye, right?
But it was like you see, all the wrestlers standing backstage, like they're not in their gimmick, and
exactly.
Bret Hart's wife is going off on everybody. She's like yelling at Triple H. And
were
he's
you
just
in
like,
on this?
Well, wife at the time, right?
Yeah,
now
they got divorced. Yeah, but he's just like, whatever, giving her like an I don't care kind of thing. And then there's the audio of like, you don't see Shawn Michaels on the screen, but you see like Bret Hart taking his boots off, and he asks him like, "Yo, you were in on that?" And he's like, "No, I had nothing to do with that." And it's like, damn, like this is.
It's real.
We need to see this shit more often. It's behind the scenes stuff. And it was like, Taker was like the locker room leader, so he was ready to fight.
Yeah, he was
anybody.
Ready.
He was ready to fight anybody.
Shawn.
Yeah,
I think he was ready. HBK. He was ready to fight him. Because this is like think about it. Like if it happened to Bret Hart, it could have happened to anybody else.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying?
He was even Vince. Taker threatened Vince.
Yeah, exactly.
He was like, "You need to go talk to Bret."
Yeah,
and he's like, "You're not leaving this room until you do, and like you got to go through me," kind of thing. And it's like, "Yo, that's your boss, dude," but it didn't matter. Like he was
right.
He's a judge, jury, and executioner back there, man.
Yeah. Right.
And that's when Vince went and got laid out.
Right.
He tells a different story, but he got laid out.
Yeah. He got laid out.
I mean, he had the black eye.
Right.
We all saw it.
Right.
But yeah, it's just crazy, man. And the fact that they were denying it.
Right.
Like straight up legit denying it.
Right.
Triple H too.
Right.
For years.
Yeah.
For years they were denying it.
It'll come out eventually. I think it was a work. To be honest with you.
Think so?
I think it was a work.
What makes you think
it'll be the biggest swerve
right
ever?
Like a 30-year swerve all these years later.
I don't know. I just have a feeling that it's a work.
Yeah. Nah.
Like it's just, you know.
I mean,
I don't think
it
it
would have
was.
been a cool way for Brett to go out and just like, hey, if you guys want to do that to me, whatever, just but the thing is, like, if you think about it, he didn't even capitalize on that.
Right.
couldn't.
Exactly.
He didn't capitalize.
And WCW
So then
did
why
anything.
he didn't benefit?
Why
It was-
agree to it? Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Because if you went to WCW and, I mean, he went to WCW and freaking, if he would have pretty much like kept it going
Right.
in a way, you know what I'm saying? But he didn't.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He came in as a referee, which we spoke
Right,
about
so
last
in
episode.
1, right?
But
Right.
come on.
And he
man.
never capitalized off the momentum. Of
No, nothing.
Right.
Nothing. And even then, like even the Hart Foundation,
Right.
They kind of like dwindled off. They
Yeah.
kind of
Little by little, everyone jumped to
everything.
WCW except Owen. Owen was the
Yeah.
only guy, and eventually he was like in limbo until he teamed up with Jarrett, ironically, out of all people, and
Yeah, yeah. So it they didn't benefit.
and
from
eventually the Nation. When he went to the Nation, eventually.
Wow.
The
yeah.
Nuggets.
it.
Nugget.
Yeah,
The Nugget, Owen Hart.
he should be in the
But
Hall
yeah,
of
man.
Fame.
It was a crazy time as a fan to see like the aftermath of all this. Like
Right.
the promos with Vince, like the interview,
Exactly.
the night after the midget came out
Right.
and they were like making fun of Bret Hart. Sorry, the small person.
Right.
And they were making fun of Bret and making fun of the whole like, angle and everything. It's just, as a fan at that age, I was pissed. I was like, "Oh, this is BS. I'm not watching this crap anymore." But then
Yeah.
Monday night, I was like, I
watched
have to find out what happened.
Right.
I think as a fan, period, it doesn't even matter
Right.
what age. Like
Right.
you grew up watching this guy Bret Hart, and people loved him. You know what I mean? Like he was a top guy for a number of years.
Right.
At the time, he was a heel though,
Yeah.
right?
Heel in USA, but face in Canada.
Yeah.
It was like weird.
Yeah. Well, I think both of them heel.
They
during
were
that
both
match
heel.
because
Right.
The Hart Foundation, they were a heel faction.
Right.
And then DX too.
Right.
But the hatred they had for each other, and it was the payoff match,
Right.
because they had the match at WrestleMania.
It was the rematch from
Rematch
WrestleMania.
from
Yeah, it was a rematch from
2
WrestleMania.
years later.
Right.
Yep,
Yep.
it's crazy, man. And the thing is, again, like they
It all culminated a couple of months back, if you remember. He fought,
Mhm.
Bret fought Undertaker, right? And he hits Taker right with the chair, by mistake.
yeah,
Yeah.
And Bret pins him. He wins a belt, and and then they had the feud, right? Ground
Yeah.
Zero, the match in October. Shawn and Hell in a Cell, the Bad Blood Hell in a Cell.
yes,
And
Wow.
eventually, I don't know how Bret got into the mix. He probably won some sort of #1 contender or something. And
Yeah, man.
So
well, yeah, 'cause
The Hell in a
Bret-
Cell
Shawn,
match-
Shawn was the referee.
right back in
In
some-
with
the Hell in a
Taker and
Cell
Bret.
pay-per-view,
Bad Blood pay-per-view.
I don't think Bret wrestled on that pay-per-view.
No, I don't think he did.
No.
That was
97.
Yeah.
That was when Kane
Kane's debut.
Yeah.
debuted.
Yeah.
So I think it
Yeah.
was the winner of that match got a title shot against.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I can see that.
Against the
Okay,
champion
got it.
at
Okay, so
Survivor
Bret, yeah,
Series.
'cause
Yo, he
Bret
was
the
out.
champion.
Wasn't he out?
No, I remember what happened. Bret was feuding with the Patriot, the
Yeah.
Wilkes at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was a heel.
Yeah.
USA versus Canada.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the problems with Shawn and Bret started years before that.
the whole Sunny thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Like there was a
The sunny
promo
days.
that he was like, "Oh, some sunny days, Bret," and then he got in trouble with his wife because he took Sunny down.
Right.
I feel bad for
and
Skip.
And it sucked. Oh yeah. Wow, he had to go through all that crap.
Yeah.
But and just to think about it too, like Survivor Series was actually a good pay-per-view.
It was.
I know.
Good pay-per-view. I mean, and the whole controversy overshadowed everything.
I don't remember.
I don't-
Honestly, I remember it being a good pay-per-view. I don't remember any of the matches.
Well, I mean,
I remember Shamrock taking out the Nation.
yeah,
right,
like
including the Rock.
So,
that I remember.
so I watched it the other night, and Blackman made his debut. Steve Blackman.
Yes.
Wow.
Right? Steve Blackman
The
made his
Lethal
debut,
Weapon.
and it was Team USA, Vader, Goldust, Mero, and Blackman versus Hart Foundation and the Rozier brothers.
Rozier brothers?
Rozier brothers.
Still?
I don't even know.
At that time?
I don't even know. But it was So Steve Blackman made his debut. You had Austin coming back from his neck injury against Owen. You had What else? You had Shamrock defeating the Nation.
Right.
You know, like it was dope, man. Like it was a great pay-per-view.
Yeah.
But that whole thing just overshadowed the whole controversy between Bret and Shawn, overshadowed everything. Right. And people don't and like you said, you don't even remember all that. Right. Like all we remember from Survivor Series 1997 is the match between the Screwjob, you know. And you know what's crazy? That even years after that happened, Survivor Series became known for screwing people over.
Yeah.
Right?
Because the year after they did it with Foley. But
it was with The Rock.
With The Rock, right.
Yeah,
right,
the title was vacant.
Right.
Or something like that. They had the tournament.
The tournament, right.
Yeah.
It was vacant because supposedly, like, Kane and Undertaker both pinned
they
Austin.
both pinned Austin, so they couldn't give the belt to them. So like, all right, vacate the title.
Right, exactly.
You know? But instead of having a match between them two, which made no sense.
An entire tournament.
They made a Deadly Games tournament.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So Survivor Series became synonymous for
And '99, that's when Austin DK was taken out.
Yeah.
He got injured for a year. Well, he was.
Was the car?
Yeah, the car incident. Yeah,
I
did it for The Rock. I did it for the people.
Shout out to Rikishi.
Rikishi.
I did it for
Not
the
our
Rock.
Rikishi, the real Rikishi.
The real
Not Rikishi who worked at Terrors in the Park.
Yo, brother.
Oh
I
my
did it.
gosh.
Oh man. So Brett, he punches him in the face, and then how does it end? Wrestling with Shot. How does it end? Do you think? From what you remember,
He punched him in the face, and then he got dressed, and he left the building. And that was it. That was the end of it. They didn't speak again until Brett had his stroke.
Wow.
Vince called him. That was like, what, 2006 that happened to him?
Yeah.
Wow.
So from 90... Oh, no. Well, they didn't speak at Owen's funeral.
They did not.
He refused to talk to him.
Damn.
But yeah, from what I remember from Brett's book and the documentary they didn't speak until he had the stroke when he fell off his bike.
Right.
After the thing with Goldberg.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like everybody else, they always come back.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know, like years later though.
Yeah, to start the new decade, 2010.
He was already like washed up.
Right.
They had the worst match in WrestleMania history.
Oh yeah, that was horrible.
It was what was it? It was the Hart the Hart.
It was Brett
family.
versus Vince for the U.S. title.
Oh yeah, the U.S. title.
Yeah, it was for the U.S.
There was
Brett was the U.S. champion.
Versus the U.S. champ. Yeah.
How the hell did he win the U.S. championship?
I don't know.
I forgot that.
Man.
was
And he
terrible.
just gave him chair shots. I remember.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
remember the chair
The
shots.
worst chair shots
Ever. Lance Storm
Dude,
style.
That
Like
like
so many bad chair shots.
that like
I've
destroyed.
seen.
That could have destroyed his legacy.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
That's how bad it was.
Yeah. No, I mean, you know, and thankfully, after all that, they were able to induct him into the Hall of Fame.
Yep.
You know,
Him and Sean had the first on-air appearance and to start the new decade, the previous decade, 2010.
Yeah.
Think about that.
Yeah,
They-
and
they
they
sell on the
squashed
air.
whatever
squashed them,
beef they
yeah.
had. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it was cool. It was cool to see because it was kind of like, all right, you know what, this happened, and you know, let's just put it behind us. Let's move on. You know what I mean? And let's just build a new relationship.
Right.
You know what I'm saying, between Brett and the WWE.
Yeah. But
And-
Brett's
and I'm-
still bitter, even now. Like
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't
he just
blame him.
complains.
I don't blame
we
him.
saw him 2-3 years ago. We met him.
Cool dude, man.
Very humble,
So nice, man.
but you can see the effects of the stroke. Like he couldn't get into the ring
Right.
on his
Yeah.
own. It's sad, but you know, thank you, Goldberg.
Right.
It's all your fault.
You think it was him?
Yeah, it was a kick to the head.
So if the whoever's watching with the fans, like if you don't know, Goldberg kicked him in the temple, right?
Yeah, in the temple, right on a nitro.
And he had a concussion, and he kept telling them that he had a concussion, and they were like, "Oh, you're fine. Go.
Yeah.
You have a match tonight." And he got another concussion,
This is before like the NFL, all that
Yeah.
stuff. This is before CTE was
and
discovered
then
and all that.
he was injured. He was at home. He was riding his bike, and he just fell off because he had a stroke,
Damn,
and then that was it.
that's crazy. And he aged so much.
Yeah.
It's so sad. I mean, even Shawn Michaels,
Right.
he aged.
He aged and his eye got crooked.
Oh my god, lost his hair, shaved
Cockeyed.
his head. He don't look the same no more.
Cockeyed
man.
funk.
He don't look the same no more, man.
Yeah,
But
man.
and thankfully, with the network, we have all those amazing 5-star matches they put on together, and and the thing is like to this day, it's one of the greatest feuds of all time.
Of course.
Of all time in
down.
any
Hands down.
sport. Any
Hands down.
sport.
Hands down.
Yeah.
So I had much to say. I think we covered it enough. So
I think we're good.
I think we're good. About 30 minutes in. I think that's good enough. So Jim Wrestle, Vibes,
Sosa.
signing out. Our next episode is about... Is it Rumble 92? No.
Royal Rumble 92.
No, I think that's the
No,
finale.
sorry. Eddie Guerrero.
Eddie Guerrero. That's right.
Oh, we're gonna talk about Eddie Guerrero.
Eddie Guerrero, yeah.
And we're gonna talk about how much he meant to this business,
That's a
man.
good episode.
Yes.
All right, guys.
Buy the
signing
shirt.
out. Buy the shirt. Buy the shirt. Peace. That was good.
That was good.
Sure.
I didn't want to stretch it too much. 30 minutes was
Yeah,
good.
because it's like there's so much you can say.
Right.
You know, it was
Exactly.
the screw job was one.
No, but
match.
it's good because we balanced ourselves out.
Right.
It's not we